Now, what I think will be the best possible scenario for LSU going into the 2023 season is now coming to fruition. What is it, and why is it so good for this team coming up next season? We'll get into that, plus so much more on today's edition of Locked on LSU.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, thank you for making Locked on LSU your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Plus, you can find us on YouTube as well. So you can listen on the go, but you can also watch on your smartphone, on your smart TV, wherever you want to watch. You can do that on YouTube at Locked on LSU. And of course, we are part of the Locked on Network, your team every day. My name is Caroline Fenton, and I'm your host, as I am every day. I graduated from LSU. I've been covering LSU football and other sports since 2016, and I now host a sports talk radio show in Nashville, Tennessee. But I hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas, a very happy holiday. I hope everyone's gearing up for a happy and healthy new year. Hope everyone enjoyed some time off with their friends and their family, because I know I did. But while we were away, we heard some big time news. And what I said was going to be the most ideal situation for LSU going into the 2023 season, and how I didn't really think that we could set expectations for this team in 2023 until we heard the decision from this one person, this one player. And we heard that news, and it's the good thing. It's the good news that I wanted to hear. And that was when Jayden Daniels announced last week that he will forego the NFL draft, the 2023 NFL draft, and will return to LSU for his final season of eligibility. And I think that that is the best possible scenario for LSU, and I'll explain why. And it's because LSU is going into 2023, into this next season, with a known commodity. LSU is going into 2023 with really no question marks at quarterback. Now, you could make the argument, well, LSU is still going to have a quarterback battle in the spring, which I think they absolutely do want to have. Brian Kelly mentioned this past year that quarterback battles are a good thing. I agree. I think they're a good thing. They're good for competition. They're good for the team. They're good to keep everybody on their toes. They're good to keep everybody motivated, so on and so forth. So while there still might be a quote unquote quarterback controversy, quarterback competition in the spring, I think we all could assume that Jayden Daniels, if there's no injury, knock on wood, fingers crossed, no injury or, any kind of massive Garrett Nussmeier developments within the offseason, Jayden Daniels, more likely than not, will be the starting quarterback for LSU next season. Now, I want to get into Garrett Nussmeier later on in the show, but I think that LSU going into this season with virtually no question marks at quarterback. Either one, knowing who your quarterback is going to be, and two, is a known commodity, I think is invaluable in terms of expectations for this team, in terms of what this team can do under Jayden Daniels' second year. And what I find incredibly puzzling is the number of LSU fans that are disappointed by Jayden Daniels' return. The number of LSU fans that are disappointed or frustrated that Garrett Nussmeier won't be under center. At least, we can just assume, because anything can happen from now until September 5th, whatever day it is, when LSU kicks off against Florida State next year. Barring any of that happening, I've been puzzled and shocked by the number of LSU fans that are frustrated that Jayden Daniels more likely than not will be under center. And I'm puzzled by this because I don't think a lot of LSU fans, or even those fans who feel that way, understand the massive contributions that Jayden Daniels brought to this team. And I don't think that those LSU fans can quite grasp just how important Jayden Daniels was to this team. And I don't mean to talk down on those fans. And if you're somebody that wants to see Garrett Nussmeier, in 2023, that you don't want Jayden Daniels to come back, you are more than welcome to have that opinion. That's totally your right. But Jayden Daniels, looking at his stats this year, he completed 69% of his passes, 2,774 passing yards, 16 passing touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. And that's just what he did in the air. He rushed for 818 yards. That's a single season LSU quarterback record in rushing yards. 11 touchdowns on the ground. He accounted for 27 touchdowns, both in the air and on the ground, to only 3 interceptions. Jayden Daniels accounted for 62% of LSU's offense this year. 62% of the offense was Jayden Daniels. He carried this offense this past year. And would I have liked to have seen, more passes from Jayden Daniels earlier on in the season? Yeah, absolutely, I would have. Was Jayden Daniels perfect this year? No, he was not. Was he the top quarterback in the SEC? No. I don't even think that you could make the argument that he was top 3. But what I think isn't a fair accusation of Jayden Daniels is that Garrett Nussmeier would be a better alternative. Because Jayden Daniels came in to LSU this past season with 3 years of experience under his belt. Garrett Nussmeier, on the other hand, had very, very limited experience as a starting quarterback, or as a quarterback, period, in college football, much less a starting quarterback. Jayden Daniels had 3 years of starting under his belt. Garrett Nussmeier had no years of starting under his belt. Jayden Daniels had the athletic ability to be able to overcome some of the shortcomings on LSU's offensive line, to be able to escape pressure better than really any other quarterback that I've seen, to be able to extend plays with his legs. Really probably better than any other quarterback in college football. Definitely up there. So while I understand some people wanting the unknown over the proven commodity to see what they have in Garrett Nussmeier, because we did see a great peak of what Garrett Nussmeier can be against Georgia in the SEC championship. I think what maybe some fans who want to see Garrett Nussmeier forget is, the 2 turnovers against Southern and the gunslinger mentality, that while there's a good part of that, there's a good side to that he can make these risky throws and he can make those big throws downfield. There's also a downside to that as well. Not taking care of the football, turning the ball over. Jayden Daniels, we know what to expect. And after a year of so much success, and Brian Kelly's just his first year, of such a wonderful foundation that has already been built, and you can build upon that next year with a proven commodity at quarterback, I think that's invaluable. And I also think it's invaluable for a quarterback to have the second year in the system. Look at Hendon Hooker at Tennessee, for example. Hendon Hooker took over as a starting quarterback about midway through the season, maybe, on the earlier side of the season last year. Hendon Hooker was not necessarily a household name in 2021, but with his second year in the system, second year with those receivers, a year of starting experience under his belt, he turned into a Heisman contender. Tennessee was in the college football playoff conversation in Hendon Hooker's second year. And need I remind you of another LSU quarterback in the past who really made leaps and bounds in his second year in the system? First year, had a solid year. Second year, won the Heisman, led LSU to a national championship. Need I remind you of that? I'm not saying Jayden Daniels is going to turn into Joe Burrow. But I mentioned Jayden Daniels' stats, his passing stats. 2,774 passing yards. Joe Burrow in his first year in 2018. 2,894. Jayden Daniels completed 69% of his passes. Joe Burrow, 57. Jayden Daniels had 16 passing touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Joe Burrow, 16 passing touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Jayden Daniels, 818 yards, 11 touchdowns. Joe Burrow, 399 rush yards, 7 rushing touchdowns. And I don't think any of us would have argued that we wanted to see Miles Brennan over Joe Burrow in his second year in the system. Like we're hearing a lot of people campaign for Garrett Nussmeier over Jayden Daniels in his second year in the system. Again, I'm not saying Jayden Daniels is going to become Joe Burrow. I'm not saying that Jayden Daniels is going to lead this team to a national title in the greatest season of college football ever. But what I am saying is that second year in a system is valuable, especially when the foundation that you have to build upon in year 2 is really, really solid. So what does that mean for the other quarterbacks in this quarterback room? We'll get into that coming up next. But before we do that, I want to tell you about LinkedIn Jobs, because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. So you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. So that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. So this radio station that I work for, we were in a pinch in the middle of football season. We needed to find a new producer and we needed to find its stat. So we went to LinkedIn Jobs, posted a free job post, then added the purple hiring frame to our LinkedIn profile to spread the word that we were hiring. And LinkedIn Jobs did all the heavy lifting for us. They filtered through all of the candidates that did or didn't have the right experience and expertise that we were looking for. So LinkedIn Jobs showed us the best candidates available, and we were able to hire a producer quickly. And we did not miss a beat trying to find our new producer. So they've got simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and hire. That's the tool that we utilized and it worked out perfectly. And we love our new producer. So that's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So start 2023 off right and find the right team member to help you do that. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to and faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Well, thank you for making Locked On LSU your first listen every day. So make your second listen Locked On Sports Today. The biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On's take of the day. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So Jayden Daniels coming back to LSU for his second season with the Tigers, his final season of eligibility. And I think that's the best possible scenario for LSU. Going into this next season, knowing your quarterback, knowing what your quarterback can do, and also having a quarterback going into a second season with a whole season of development and experience under his belt, of an entire season of learning the system and learning the receivers. And I think an underrated element of that too is this receiver room looks very similar in 2023 than it did in 2022. No Jeray Jenkins, but you have Kayshon Boutte coming back. No Jack Besh, but you have Malik Neighbors coming back. Jayden Daniels' favorite target in 2022, he'll have again. And we talked so much about the chemistry between Kayshon Boutte and Jayden Daniels. And, was it a chemistry issue? Was it a problem between Jayden Daniels and Kayshon Boutte? Well, they've had the time to work those things out. And we've seen Kayshon Boutte take steps forward in this system. We've seen Jayden Daniels take steps forward in this system. Does Jayden Daniels have his flaws? Absolutely. Were there times that I was screaming at my TV telling Jayden Daniels, please just throw the football? Please throw the football. Yes, I was. Several times. And I think you probably were too. But we've seen the growth that Jayden Daniels has made in just 1 year. Compare the Florida State game to the Alabama game. That looks like two different quarterbacks. So I think this is a good thing for LSU. And you may disagree, and that's completely fine. But your second year in a system, I think, is huge, especially knowing how much talent LSU truly has offensively and how much talent they're bringing back. I think this is huge. I think this is incredibly important for this team. But there's another side to this, because Jayden Daniels coming back means that there might be a shakeup, could be, possibly, maybe, be a shakeup in this quarterback room. Jayden Daniels came in 2022, and there was a legitimate quarterback battle. Miles Brennan, who of course decided to step away from football. Miles Brennan, Jayden Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier, and Walker Howard was in the conversation as well. But as a true freshman competing against three quarterbacks who had been in college football, been in the system either at LSU or elsewhere, just didn't really make sense to add him in the loop. But this isn't anything that you all don't know. But there was a legitimate quarterback battle. Jayden Daniels, of course, emerged as the frontrunner, emerged as the starting quarterback in 2022. Now, Garrett Nussmeier was legitimately fighting for a starting spot this past year. With Jayden Daniels coming back, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Of course, if Garrett Nussmeier does choose to stay, the best quarterback is going to win the job. If that is Garrett Nussmeier, then Garrett Nussmeier will start. If that's Jayden Daniels, if Jayden Daniels gives this team the best opportunity to win, which I believe he will, but a lot can change in spring ball, a lot can change over the summer. But where we stand right now on December 27th, I feel confident that Jayden Daniels gives this team the best opportunity to win. So I don't know if this year will be as competitive or as legitimate of a quarterback battle, of a quarterback competition as it was this past year. So Garrett Nussmeier has a really difficult and big decision to make. Does Garrett Nussmeier want to stay at LSU? Does he want to battle it out for a starting job? Does he want to spend 1 more year on the bench, learning this system, learning Mike Denbrock, learning from Jayden Daniels, and knowing that next year he will have a starting spot, that he probably will be the starting quarterback in 2024? Or does he want to go elsewhere? Does he want to be a starting quarterback in 2023, whether that's at LSU or not? That's his decision. It depends on his priorities. Is his priority learning and developing at LSU? Is his priority being the starting quarterback at LSU at some point? Or is his priority being a starting quarterback in the 2023 season? And I don't know the answer to that question. I think we will learn pretty soon, within the next maybe even days, maybe weeks. Remember, the transfer portal's still open for about a little less than a month, about 3 more weeks. Or in the spring, whenever the transfer portal opens again. If they're battling out the job in spring ball and Garrett Nussmeier says, hey, I'm out. I don't really want to compete for a starting spot. It's totally his decision. But I don't think that we should totally discount the idea that Garrett Nussmeier probably is exploring that option. So will he transfer? He showed so much promise against Georgia. And I would hate to see a quarterback like that has so much talent, that has the mentality of, I'm going to put this ball up and I trust my receivers enough to come down with it. The quarterback mentality of, F it, we got to make plays, and not being conservative. I feel like that's a mindset that you don't find very often. That's not a mindset that you can teach. It's not a mindset that you can coach. Garrett Nussmeier just has it. He has the swagger, and he has the arm. He has the ability. We've seen it in practice. We've seen it in the few times that he has come in games. We saw it against Georgia. We've seen how much promise and ability and talent that Garrett Nussmeier truly has. I think both physical and mental ability. So I think that's what we have to keep an eye on. And I wish that I had a better analysis. I wish I had more insight and information for you about that. But that's kind of the downside to Jayden Daniels returning to LSU, is might be a really legitimate possibility that Garrett Nussmeier does decide to play elsewhere in 2023, that he does want to be a starting quarterback, that he does want to start to get more playing time. Now, a couple of things, will we see more playing time for Garrett Nussmeier against Purdue? It depends on the health of Jayden Daniels, and it depends on the priority of this coaching staff. Is their priority get Jayden Daniels out there, get all the starters out there, and avoid going 0-3 in your last 3 games at the end of the season and win a bowl game and go out in 2022, I guess 2023 rather, the 2022 season with a win and end with a 10-win season and move on from there? Is it see what you've got in these young guys, give these young guys some playing time, and you can go into spring ball with maybe a little bit more clear picture, or a bit clearer picture of who you've got, what their abilities are, and how they handle not just playing in a big game with big stakes, but also starting in a big game with big stakes. I think that'll be big. So playing time against Purdue, if we see Garrett Nussmeier out there, that might help make his decision, or maybe give us a clearer picture of what his intentions truly are. But that's something that we're going to keep an eye on, is will Garrett Nussmeier decide to transfer next year? Or will he decide to stay at LSU and learn under Jayden Daniels and Mike Denbrock and this entire coaching staff for 1 more year? But if he does decide to transfer, what should LSU do from there? We'll get into that coming up next. But before we do that, I want to tell you about driving sober. So if you are hanging out with some of your friends, we're getting into the new year, you're putting back a few drinks, maybe a few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end, people start to head out. You think about calling for a ride. You open your phone to a ride sharing app, and then you think, no, there's surges, it's expensive. You live super close nearby. You can make it home and it's no big deal. You can drive, because what are the odds that you'll get pulled over anyways? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Maybe your insurance goes up, but maybe you lose your license, or maybe you lose your job. Maybe you total your car. Maybe you kill someone, and maybe you even kill yourself. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. So that's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think that you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe, plan ahead, get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life, or maybe someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. All right, Jayden Daniels coming back in the 2023 season. Where will Garrett Nussmeier be in 2023? We don't know. That's all kind of up in the air, but I think those are all important questions that we have to ask ourselves. Because if Garrett Nussmeier does decide to stay at LSU, I think you're good. I think you're set up in a great position. You just run it back in 2023 like you did in 2022. Jayden Daniels is your starting quarterback. Garrett Nussmeier is your backup. Walker Howard gets another year of development. Great. Wonderful. You just run it back. But Garrett Nussmeier might get to the point where he says, look, I got to get some starting time. Like, my overall goal is to make it to the NFL, is to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm not going to do that by riding the bench. If that's his mentality, I don't blame him. I've said it so many times before. I'll say it so many times again. I will never blame a player for entering the transfer portal and getting themselves a better opportunity to set themselves up for the future. I won't blame Garrett Nussmeier. But if he does, that leads to the next question. Does LSU need to go out and get another quarterback in the transfer portal? And I think absolutely 100% yes. And that's also noting that I haven't watched Walker Howard in practice. I don't know the kind of developments that he's made. I know Brian Kelly has made several comments about Walker Howard throughout the season that while we're not going to see him out on the playing field, what are some of the developments that he's making behind the scenes? And Brian Kelly has said that they're really excited about what they've seen from him. They're really excited about what he can turn into and who he can become. So maybe I'm completely off base here, that Walker Howard has made the developments in this past year that he's ready to be a backup. That if Jayden Daniels, knock on all the wood, fingers crossed, if Jayden Daniels goes down with an injury, maybe tears an ACL or he's out for the season or out for an extended period of time, again, knock on wood, Walker Howard could come in and be the new starting quarterback for LSU. Maybe that's the case. But I'm not going to put all of my eggs in Walker Howard's basket when he has zero college football experience. So I'd say go out in the transfer portal and find another quarterback to back up Jayden Daniels. But that also adds another caveat of when Jayden Daniels returned to LSU, that essentially sent the message to all the quarterbacks in the nation, and especially the quarterbacks at LSU's quarterback room, that they are going to be competing for a backup spot. So it might sound really easy to say, okay, well, LSU, if Garrett Nussmeier does decide to transfer, that's a huge asterisk, a huge if, because he might not. But if he does, going out and getting a quarterback in the transfer portal to be a backup is going to be incredibly difficult. These quarterbacks that are in the transfer portal are in the transfer portal most likely because they don't want to be backups. Most likely because they want to find a place where they can be a starting quarterback. No quarterback leaves one school to go to another to just sit the bench and to just be a backup. And maybe there's a really talented quarterback out there that's fine with being a backup because they just want to, follow a new coaching staff or be in a different system. Maybe be closer to home. I don't know. But looking at some of the quarterbacks in the transfer portal who haven't already decided where they want to go. Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina. He's in the transfer portal and has yet to decide where he's going to play ball in 2023. Grayson McCall is not the type of quarterback or caliber of quarterback that's going to transfer to be a backup. Virginia's Brendan Armstrong, same idea. He's transferring because he wants to find a starting place. Luke Altmaier. Ole Miss, he's transferring because he was Jackson Dart's backup and wants to start elsewhere. So it's going to be really difficult to find a quarterback in the transfer portal to come in and be a backup and have that quarterback be a backup that's good enough and has enough experience that you feel confident that that quarterback can come in and start right away. So that's kind of the difficult dichotomy that LSU is facing. So while I say I think the best possible scenario for LSU in 2023 came to fruition, and that's Jayden Daniels returning to LSU, I think that, the best possible thing, well, that's 1A, the best possible thing, 1B, would be for Garrett Nussmeier to come back and be your backup. And of course, that's incredibly selfish of me to say because that's so easy to say, yep, bring all your quarterbacks in 2023, bring them all back, and you're all set up. That's incredibly selfish. But if I'm going to talk about the best possible scenario for LSU, Jayden Daniels comes back and Garrett Nussmeier decides to stick it out for one more year. And he may potentially be your starter in 2024. That's the bad part about having a stacked quarterback room. You have plenty of options. But sometimes those quarterbacks might be sick and tired of being just one of many options. But now we're on the topic of quarterbacks. I don't know if y'all saw Garrett Nussmeier's sweet NIL deal, but he's going to be staying in the Cheez-It suite for the Citrus Bowl. Just signed an NIL deal with Cheez-It. He's staying in it's room that looks like the inside of a Cheez-It box. It's like red walls with a Cheez-It bed, tricked out with Cheez-It stuff. So I'm jealous. I would stay around just to hang out in the Cheez-It suite. But Jayden Daniels returning in 2023. The next question is, where will Garrett Nussmeier be in 2023? Who will be in the quarterback room at LSU in 2023? That's something that we'll continue to follow. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you for making Locked On LSU your first listen every day. Now, LSU basketball starts conference play tomorrow against Arkansas. We'll have a breakdown of that game, a little bit of a preview of that game. And of course, we're talking all things transfer portal, all things recruiting class, all things bowl game. Busy, busy, busy around here at Locked On LSU. So we'll break all of that down on tomorrow's episode as well. Make sure to make your second listen Locked On Sports today. Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. So get the analysis and opinions before anyone else with our local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today podcast available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.